Jeffrey Epstein died way back in 2019, but his story, man, it is far from over. Actually, for some of the most powerful people on the planet, a brand new and pretty terrifying chapter of reckoning has just kicked off. So let's get right into it and break down what's been happening. Okay, so I want you to picture this. It's early February 2026. And for some of the world's most powerful people, the ground just completely opens up beneath them. All these carefully built legacies, these pristine reputations, they just start to crumble almost overnight. It's like a shockwave, and it's tearing through the worlds of tech, finance, and law. So what caused this massive earthquake? Well, it wasn't some new crime. No, it was the ghosts of a very old one. We're talking about millions of documents, emails, and photos from Jeffrey Epstein's world finally being released for everyone to see. And look, we are not talking about a small leak here. The Department of Justice dropped an absolutely staggering 3.5 million files. Think about that number. This wasn't a drip of information, it was a flood. And that flood was about to sweep away some very big names. So let's start by looking at the personal toll this took. And we're going to focus on one of the biggest names caught right in the middle of this storm, Bill Gates. Because the revelations that came out, well, they weren't just about business deals. No, this stuff struck right at the core of his personal life. Now, what's really crucial to get here is where these allegations even came from. They weren't sworn testimonies or anything like that. They were these explosive claims found in Epstein's unsent draft emails. I mean, just think about that for a second. And the claims were wild. That Gates used Epstein's networks for affairs, that he contracted an STI, and even that he asked for help to secretly give antibiotics to his then-wife, Melinda. But Gates, he fired back almost immediately, just forcefully denying every single bit of it. His position is crystal clear. These were just weird emails Epstein wrote to himself, they were never even sent, and the stuff in them is totally 100% false. He basically suggested that maybe Epstein was trying to attack him from beyond the grave. It's a pretty wild defense. So you really have two completely different stories here. On one side, you've got Bill Gates' public version of events. I deeply regret ever meeting him. It was all for my philanthropic work. But then, on the other side, you have these private unsent drafts from Epstein that paint a picture of a much darker and more personal relationship. And we can't forget, there's a real human cost to all of this. Melinda French Gates really gave a voice to that pain. For her, these headlines weren't just about PR or her ex-husband's reputation. She said it just brought back memories of some incredibly painful times in her marriage. She pretty much directly linked his association with Epstein to why they eventually split. And in the end, she drew a very firm line in the sand. She basically said, look, any questions you have about his relationship with Epstein, those are for him to answer, not me. That's a really powerful statement, and it just goes to show you the kind of personal fallout and the deep fractures this whole scandal is still creating. Okay, so the fallout didn't just stay in the personal realm. It bled right over into the professional world. These files didn't just wreck marriages, they completely toppled careers. And a perfect example of this is what went down with Brad Karp, who was the chairman of the powerhouse law firm Paul Weiss. See, Karp's firm had always maintained that their relationship with Epstein was strictly adversarial. They claimed they were on the opposite side of a legal dispute. But then this email comes out. After having dinner at Epstein's townhouse, Karp is just gushing, calling it a once-in-a-lifetime evening. I mean, does that sound very adversarial to you? Yeah, me neither. Oh, but it gets worse. A lot worse. The email showed Karp asking Epstein for personal favors, like trying to get his son a job on a Woody Allen movie. And then, here's the real kicker. He reviewed a draft legal filing for Epstein, the guy his firm was supposedly fighting against, and told him it was overwhelmingly persuasive. You just can't make this stuff up. Well, you can imagine the reaction inside his law firm, Paul Weiss, was not good. It was swift and it was severe. This wasn't just a little bit of bad press. It was a full-blown crisis of confidence. The other partners at the firm, the people who really run the show, they saw these emails, and the massive gap between the official story and what was really going on was just too much. And the result? Bam! On February 4th, Brad Karp was forced to resign as chairman. The partners met without him, and they decided that the contradiction here, what he was doing versus what the firm was saying, was a distraction they just could not afford. And just like that, one of the most powerful lawyers in the entire country was gone. A truly stunning downfall. But the damage didn't stop there. It wasn't just contained to a couple of people. Think of it like a stone thrown into a pond. The ripples just kept spreading out wider and wider, catching more and more high-profile figures in the wake.
So who else got caught up in this? Well, Elon Musk's name popped up in some emails from more than a decade ago. In one back and forth about a trip, he asked Epstein straight up, "What day/night will be the wildest party on your island?" Now, for his part, Musk has since said he didn't correspond much with him and ended up declining the invitations.
And then there's former Prince Andrew. I mean, this guy was already stripped of his royal titles because of his connection to Epstein. But these new files, they brought new photos. And these images show him on all fours, crouching over a woman who hasn't been identified. We have no idea what the context is, but the pictures themselves are just incredibly damaging. And check this one out. Steve Tisch, the co-owner of the New York Giants football team, he's in an email exchange with Epstein about a woman they've both met, and Tisch asks this absolutely chilling question: is she a pro or civilian? It's just such a stark, ugly look at the kind of dehumanizing language that was apparently being thrown around in these circles. So all of this really brings us to the big question, right? Jeffrey Epstein is dead. He's gone. So why does his shadow still loom so large over everything? What is the real, lasting impact of all these revelations, all these years later? Because at the end of the day, this story is about so much more than just one evil man. It's this really uncomfortable reminder of how power and influence can work behind closed doors. It shows you the absolutely catastrophic price of terrible judgment and toxic associations. And maybe most importantly, it's a huge lesson that even though accountability can be delayed, sometimes for years, it isn't always denied. The crimes of the past are still out there, claiming new victims and destroying new careers today. And that leaves us with one final thought. These files, they aren't just some dusty historical record. They're an active force, a ghost from the past that is literally reaching out and reshaping the lives of the powerful right now. And it really makes you wonder, who's going to be next?